Hello, friends. We are on the Cosmos Voice number 8. And today, Greg, our host, and Jan from Web3 Security, our guest. And I will be co-host. I will ask some questions. For me, it's very interesting to know more about Web3 Security. More, we will see each other very soon on the Interchain Summit in Berlin. And this is kind of a pre-meet before our material world meet. So, friends, I'm here. I will turn on my microphone camera later. Let's start.
Thank you. Thank you, Vlad, for this introduction. I am glad to host this meeting today. Thank you, Jan, for joining and devoting your time, being so kind to spend some time with us. Let me just say, in a moment, I will obviously ask you, a few things about yourself, like a little bit of introduction for someone who will see the recording and might not, for whatever reason, know us yet. But, before I do that, just to give you a little bit of the background, like from my end, I am coming from business consulting world, from traditional business consulting. I'm ex-Accenture, and for some years already into the crypto world as well. And during this time, like trying to come up with some kind of solid idea that is really holding a business model, behind, and eventually leverage blockchain technology for a good use. And fascinating about technology. I'm delivering technology for corporations. So it's a kind of hobby for me. And we are running also DAODISEO project, which is around real estate world asset tokenization. So the topic of today, and having you precisely today connect with me very much. I am curious. I am excited and anxious to hear, from you about all these things that actually real business could face, when it comes to security, when it comes to all the type of risks that we could face, as a business due to, utilization of this technology. So before we go forward, just as I said at the beginning, please tell us about yourself, your journey to crypto, and what was your pre and crypto world?
Hey, thanks so much for the introduction, and thanks for being on today. My name is Jan from Web3 Security. I'm one of the managing directors at Web3. And like your question, like how did I get into crypto? Well, in a way, I got into crypto in 2013, 14, maybe, like with the launch of Ethereum and Bitcoin. I think I lived together with a lot of people back in those days, which were very early contributors to the whole ecosystem. But also in a way, I went away again. So I think then I was in crypto from maybe, let's say 2012, 13 to 2016. And then around that time, that was the ICO era, I think. And for me, that was just a bit of too much. Like I found it. I just found it not very interesting in a way. I was there for the technology, permissionlessness, trustless systems, and so on and so forth. And then at that time, I think the strong commercialization that was doomed to fail at the same time just turned me off a lot. And I think like now is the time where like the commercialization happens, where it really matters. So what did I do in 2016? Well, I did my PhD in economics and worked for the European Central Bank. So in a way, I'm from the dark side, right? I used to regulate money market funds, shadow banks, and sometimes I even had a stance on crypto businesses. But I, on the other hand, never left crypto, right? So I always was still looking into it, and I became more or less an econometric software engineer. So I wrote basically programs, procedures that can calculate things in real time in low-level languages. And Then at some point I discovered, well, this makes me a okay auditor, actually, with a very unique perspective. So I started auditing, and at the same time, I always did a bit of consulting for crypto projects, just because I've been in the industry for so long, and now I'm also sometimes writing angel tickets. Yeah, this is how I ended up doing security auditing. So is a very non-standard way, and I would not describe myself as a standard security guy. And here I have to mention the history of Oak, right? Oak Security and also Solidified are basically have a strong connection and strong history together. So Solidified was founded in 2017 by one of the co-founders of Oak Security, Stefan, and he is really the OG of the OGs. He has a PhD in distributed systems pre-Bitcoin. And basically, I always describe it that way. You know, there was Solidified, which is the more OG brand, and there's Oak Security, and Solidified sounds a lot like Solidity. So at some point, like in, I think, 2021, it was just time for another brand that focused entirely on the new systems that emerged, like Cosmos, Polkadot, all the Rust-based systems, Go-based infrastructure, and that. And since then, both brands, Solidity and Oak Security, have never had an exploit, and I think that's thanks to the amazing work internally and the great efforts of the other managers. And I'm really grateful to be part of that mission.
Thank you for a few words about you and your journey, to crypto. The next kind of question that come to my mind is about a little bit more about Oak Security, if possible. Maybe, from the perspective of the size, first of all, what type of operations do you have? What type of clients do you serve? And what type of value you are providing? Who are typically, your customers? I can imagine that those are probably the projects, right? And, why those projects are doing this and what is that value that they are gaining, and a little bit about that. And also, this is something that is affecting almost all the businesses. There is a little bit of compliance and kind of multiple jurisdictions that often are involved. Yeah, so how you are solving also that part, serving to all the customers around the world, I guess. So tell us a little bit, deep dive, let's say a first level deep dive to Oak Security operations.
Right. Sure. So Oak Security is a boutique company for cybersecurity. We have 52 security researchers and more than 600 audits completed, but not only audits, but also a lot of other projects related to cybersecurity. And we've discovered more than 7,000 issues. We've worked with the largest of the largest. So we've worked with the Ethereum Foundation. We've audited 1inch at Lido. And we have a very strong track record in the Cosmos ecosystem. We've audited Cosmosm. We've audited Cosmos SDK itself. We've audited other auditors in the ecosystem. So, for example, Informal Systems. But also we do operational security consulting. For example, we've just worked with dYdX on the front of operational security and getting their security operations right. We work with infrastructure providers such as NIM, but also perpetual swaps protocols such as Mars. So you can imagine the way we work as basically looking at the full tech stack and every line of code that you give us, and whatever is in scope, we will try to break it. And what else can I say? I mean, there's audits, and then there's a whole range of other security services that are not audits. And I think in Web3, those are often forgotten about. And within the last, let's say, half year or year, we've particularly emphasized on fixing those issues, right? Because it's one thing that the code breaks, but if you look at the ranked leaderboard, like the money that got the leaders of the ranked leaderboard, so to say, those exploits, they are actually operational security exploits. So a lot of things can go wrong that you cannot fix with just exchanging a line of code. You have really to think about security best practices, how you manage things internally, and so on and so forth. So long story short, we cover the full tech stack. We do mostly pre-deployment security. So we don't do, for example, incident response. We have partners for that. If you want help with it, you can still reach out and ask us. But this is something that we leave to our partners. But everything else, pretty much, we can help you with. And we very large clients, but also small startups. I think, within the last 8 years of being operational, we have a product for everyone now.
Thank you, Jan. And I am starting to kind of peel the onion a little bit. I am also, understanding that in general it looks like, the focus is not only of discovering potential bugs in the code that could result in exploitation of the contracts, but also these operational risks, and something that in traditional companies you would actually classify it as risk management. And this potentially risk management is what prevents, let's say, analyze first, identify, and then eventually prevents these operational risks by generating mitigation actions, I guess. Yeah. So actually, if I may ask you to start from this operational part, because, probably the reason is that it's almost like a most interesting one, given the fact that, you audit the code. Yes, we understand like different type of languages, different platforms, full stack. Yeah. So we are preventing to bad things to happen. Now, in this operational part, what is your kind of strategy, to deliver or to assess what is needed and what type of services you are providing there? Are you using some kind of tools, or is more kind of consulting know-how where, the other side, your client, is actually learning what are those most important aspects that they need to take in consideration to prevent actually to be hit? So how you articulate that?
Yeah, so let me first of all give a big picture of like the importance of operational security in Web3, right? So we invented blockchains basically with this thought that they are built on cutting edge cryptography, which is currently thought to be unbreakable. But then, on the other hand, we decided to empower the user, right? And empowering the user was a very bad idea.
I know what you mean.
With a lot of responsibility, there comes a lot of risk. So the security concerns in Web3 are basically the same that you have in Web2. So you have off-chain code and infrastructure. This would be servers. So, for example, people could attack validators and could attack off-chain components. And this is, for example, this could be concerning this Telegram channel, right? Somebody could join this Telegram channel and pretend to be you or pretend to be me, and then try to scam users. The most basic stuff, right? But this can actually lead to a lot of damage and risk. And this is particularly true because users in Web3 manage their own funds, right? It is like, it's way harder for you to get your bank account hacked than to give your keys away, basically. Because for, at least in most jurisdictions now, it is already mandatory that you have like a two-factor authentication with bank accounts. But we don't have that in Web3, right? The user can do whatever they want. Nevertheless, still scams happen with banks and so on. So like it's not that easy. But I just want to make the point, right? At the moment where you give your keys away, or one key gets compromised, your whole funds might get lost. And for example, a Ronin network, which I think lost over $600 million, is a famous example of a key that got exploited in a bridge. And then suddenly, like all the funds, or a big share of the funds, were gone. So now we have two specific risks. Like one is that humans have a different impact in Web3, and then we have a key management. But there's also a third one, and that's the smart contracts. And the smart contracts, I think you're right. The smart contracts are actually more or less now the boring part. We still have to think about them because smart contracts hold security in a way. They are publicly accessible, and sometimes we have the desire to make them immutable, so that you cannot fix bugs, or you can at least not fix bugs in real time in the most cases, right? And so one thing that can go wrong here is around deployment. So, and like I can tell you an example of a timeline that really happened. Like on a Tuesday evening, a smart contract gets deployed, and then users get enthusiastic. It gets shielded on social media, in Telegram, Twitter, and so on. And in Wednesday evening, that contract holds like half a billion US dollars of worth. And then Wednesday evening, they discover a bug. And then Thursday, the price collapses. And such things are not uncommon. But what you just asked me is like, what can users do, or what we would recommend to typical clients? And that really depends who the client is, right? For example, around key management, we would think, I would say, around three important silos, so to say, or three important verticals. And those are storage, usage, and policy. So you need a strategy for all of those. For example, for storage, the most secure version is to store your key on like different metal plates all across the desert and the mountains, and just bury them, right? Nobody has access to them. And also you don't remember them. But that's terrible UX. You know, now every time you need your key, you need to go through those places, dig it out, and so on and so forth, right? So you need a way that to store them, but also to use them. And to manage that trade-off, or to have the right strategy for that trade-off, that's our job. Basic version to protect your key already a little bit would be a cloud HSM, a software key vault, something like that, right? And then you need a policy for usage, and usage typically involves multi-signature procedures. So who signs, how many people have to sign, and so on and so forth, but also logging. So that means who has signed when, and when does that become visible for whom, right? That's only the second part of it. And those are basic strategies. And then you need a strategy for policy, so to say. And the strategy for policy is, what do you do if you need a new key, if a key got compromised and you need to revoke some key, right? Because like if you just do it ad hoc, things might go wrong on that dimension. And here you see how it is basically a lot of strategic work, a lot of thinking about a company's operations. And then there is off-chain components. And off-chain components might include databases, websites, Discord servers, APIs, wallets, and so on and so forth. And those can be attacked with the typical cybersecurity toolkit. So pen tests, spamming APIs, these things, those would be the tool set of the traditional Web2 cybersecurity person, and we would use the same tools to attack these these components, but with a perspective from Web3, basically. I think a very important or interesting case study here is the Balancer DNS hijack. Basically, that happened in September 2023. And at that time, the Balancer website redirected to a malicious instance. And this DNS hijack happened through a social engineering attack, but they didn't attack Balancer. They attacked the telecom provider. So basically somebody called the telecom provider and told them that they are Balancer and they need to change their DNS to redirect to another site. And they basically managed their way to yapping some support staff into changing everything. And luckily, this was a very lucky case because DAO members and also users detected this really early, and they prevented that things got worse, I think, by pausing the pool.
Jan, it's I see you have like a real world, anecdotes and knowledge of what could actually happen, and obviously many things could go wrong. So it's almost sometimes terrifying, for people who are building businesses online to prevent everything that might go wrong. There is one area that me personally, I'm thinking about this a lot, but I think is a reality also of many other projects. Projects are using many tools, as you suggested, a few moments ago, even social media. Sometimes like hacking the social media could be a small disaster. So, that includes Telegram. Like when you have not appropriate kind of management policy there, and this is not well structured, or other tools, right, that could very negatively impact. And I was always thinking that the multisig is a kind of solution, of course, with some trade-offs as well, especially when the action does not need to take immediately, but you have some kind of physical time that is expected to happen or elapse until the decision needs to be made. So in those cases, I think the multisig wallets in general, a kind of quite nice protection. And what is you thinking, about this, like a use of multisig wallets as a mean of protecting yourself? Or from perspective of the organization, of course, I am saying this, and also how organization could protect the social media like Telegram. Is there any way to kind of decentralize Telegram and make it, make the ownership in hands of DAO, so that it cannot be kind of easily exploited?
Oh, these are two very interesting, but I think also a bit different questions. So the first question is, okay, are multisigs safe? I would say yes, they are a very good and basic practice, but how you see that still a lot of things can go wrong with multisigs. If you look at the Bybit and Safe exploit, so recently Bybit had actually lost a couple of billion, I think, or 1 billion, due to signing a malicious transaction. And this was because the safe front end was compromised, but it also shows that, eventually Bybit still signed that transaction. And why was that the case? That was the case because they were signing blindly a meta transaction, and in connections with hardware wallets, those things can get really tricky, or it can become a problem. So whenever you use a a multisig and sign a meta transaction, so to say, then you might not actually see what's going on. So the recommendation here is to run simulations or at least diversify your multisig if you have a lot of funds. So only have enough funds in a hot wallet. And what I mean with a hot wallet is a wallet that can sign stuff and is connected to the web. That only have so much funds there that you can, in the worst case, afford to lose them. And the second question was on Telegram, as I remember, right?
Yes.
So can
yes.
Telegram be decentralized? And the question for me here is that actually desirable? I mean, we see that, for example, there's Farcaster, which is a decentralized publishing and social media platform. So I think in theory, the answer is yes, but the question is who would want that? And would that really help security? I think a part of the answer could even be that the main problem that Telegram has is maybe scams or like impersonation. And to solve impersonation, you would actually need to have centralized or decentralized version of KYC on it. But on the decentralized KYC front, we are not so far out yet, right? Mm-hmm. So there's only a couple of providers and nobody's sure how it how it really would work. And then people still rely on Web2 KYC services to verify people. But I think that would be a way to make it more secure in the short term, to have like verification on Telegram.
Thank you, Jan, for these clarifications. And may I ask you, again, my curiosity is calling here. Of course, you work for large organizations, because of your extended experience, those organizations are calling you, but you also mentioned some smaller. How you typically provide that service? Is it like a pure consulting, or maybe you are like engaging in some kind of joint venture, or how
does the average contract look like? You mean?
Yes, because, I'm trying to compare these with the traditional consulting. Obviously, large organizations, I work a lot for like pharma, oil and gas, and, the consulting work is very expensive, let's say, but the small companies, they cannot afford something like that. It's like, having top consultants from Accenture and top consultant Jan. Yeah. So how actually small organization can afford top Jan?
That's a good question. So I think the answer is that most of like Web3 builders are de facto building a bank. They are building financial software, right? Mm-hmm. So you cannot build a bank without having a safe, right? It would be nuts if you would say you are a Web2 startup, or you're just a physical startup and you try to build a bank, but we will save money on the safe. So we would just put all the money of our clients in a box and we put it away, right? So, and then people come and they get the money if they ask for it, right? That's not how it works. Like Web3 works that way, that you need expensive resources, and those expensive resources are developers and security people. So we work with small clients, and there we do that on a maybe smaller basis, or we don't staff as many auditors, and that's maybe something special about our process that I can mention. So, like, here's how the average audit works, right? The code is finished, and then at a given point in time, we get some code that is supposed to go live, and we look at this code, and then we write a report about it. The company fixes the code, and then we amend the report and look at the fixes again, basically. So that can be a very short engagement. And what can companies do to get ready for an audit is to write code in very good quality. So to do a lot of those things already in-house and work with checklists, cross-check each other, right? Those things then take time, which can also be money. And also, like more recently, we've introduced a new service for smaller teams, which I would only recommend if you have lighter security needs, right? If you don't want to have if you don't want to be the safest banks, maybe maybe you're building a game or something like that, which doesn't hold so much TVL, or it's just a component that enhances the UX. Then those components can be maybe audited, or like games could be maybe audited with a lighter package. But generally, saving money on the infrastructure side is never a good idea. But here's the thing about our process, right? And I think this process is the reason why we haven't been exploited, or not we haven't been exploited, but the code that we audited of our clients hasn't been hacked within the last, I think, 8 years that we're in business. So 0. And I think that's a strong number. And where does that strong number come from? From my perspective, it comes from our unique process. So we work the following way. We always staff multiple auditors at the same time to look at somebody's code. And they look at that in parallel and without being allowed to talk to each other. Right? We make sure that they do not share any findings. So it's kind of a mini competition between them. Mm-hmm. And at a given day, they are supposed to share these findings with each other. So now this is not a typical competition, because in a typical competition, you have a random selection of auditors that look at the code, and there's no quality control for the auditors, right? So we make sure that everybody on the team has great experience and is qualified to look at the code. At the same time, this makes sure that there's a redundancy in place. Even the best people can miss something, and the fact that they all do it at the same time, that drastically decreases the likelihood of missing something. Nevertheless, this is a statistical thing, so things can always go wrong, right? And I think that's that's a very important part here as well, is that we typically staff people that are not very similar to each other. So we don't expect that there's a 100% overlap in all the findings. For example, somebody like me, I'm an economist, right? So I'm not a very skilled cryptographer and so on and so forth. So looking at cryptography for me is difficult. I still might be able to find things, and sometimes I found critical bugs in cryptography. But I have my field of expertise, and I have my own process how I can look at the code and dive deep into the things that I want without getting distracted by others who might be screaming about complain about other parts in the code. And I think there, like the way we do it, if you have lighter security needs, for example, you're building a game or you just started and want to build an MVP to show it to the next round of investors. By the way, if you need investors, also always reach out to us. Maybe we can help, maybe we can introduce you to someone. Right? So that's also a way to get funding for your audit. Just show that you're creating value. But anyway, so let's say you are building something smaller. Then the answer would be, well, we just staff less people on the audit, and that can bring the price down. Nevertheless, we are still a very premium provider, and the service we offer is not super cheap, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can imagine, Jan, that's the case. Especially is really not easy to find people who has a demonstrable experience and can prove results with like a clean track, as you mentioned, for years, where your clients were not compromised, the code that you audited. So that's indeed something that probably, many businesses will need to assume as a cost. As we said, for larger, companies with big ambitions, you mentioned that very often it's like creating a bank, and I actually like this kind of metaphor, because in reality it's like that. It's like a question is like how much TVL you are going to host, on that place, no matter what you are doing in the business, but at the end there is a certain amount of value hosted, on that platform. So the size, of course, matters. And I wanted to give you like a real example from DAODISEO in this case. As I mentioned, we are in a world of real estate asset tokenization. Actually, we are tokenizing not that much the asset itself, which is also true, but more like a process of developing those assets. So the process typically takes very long. You can imagine like the process of 3 years, 4 years, building like maybe in our case is a smart village, in Greece. So at the beginning we buy plots, and those plots, let's say, are fully paid. So you have now like $1 million to be held somewhere. And so it's already like a $1 million asset that needs to be protected in one hand. And then, of course, you have some kind of liquidity coming from your own token, fungible token, which is correlated with that asset in the protocol, without entering into too much detail. And then in order to build that, that over the next 3 years, you will need some kind of budget of $4 million in order to build those 4 villas, right? So at the end, you might be easily hosting like 5 millions just with this one investment. And as you are building it, the investment is growing. So that's type of numbers, imagine, like for start, of course, we have an ambition in the future to have more projects. But before anything else, we need to prove that our concept works and our pilot is proven. So what do you think about those type of cases, which I think are not maybe unrare?
Yeah, I mean, the safe way is always to limit the pool size, right? Or to launch a testnet. If you have a strong technical use case, then it might be enough to show the technical value to people before you put a lot of money in it. And then that's a part of security consulting as well, right? Making the right decision on like when to put money into the safe and when to leave it out. For example, I think a very good example of this is privacy pools, right? Privacy pools is a very novel concept. After all, they are now live on ETH mainnet, and they leverage ZK technology to encrypt things. And what they did is basically they limited the initial deposit to 1 ETH and told everybody, well, this is audited, but this is still highly risky. So my recommendation is, if you are really, really early, then it's all about communication. It's communication with your stakeholders. It's communication with your community, investors, also with the auditors. Maybe just make sure that the key functions are working, and tell everybody, hey, this is a test. This is not going to be the full in production version. And then you might get a cheaper version, I think it's basically startup building, right? You might get a cheaper version, faster out, might be able to test it, and then if it works, secure additional funding, and pay for better infrastructure, better audits, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that. I noticed this kind of experience that is coming from your words, and I am relying this, connecting this to the a real world, because at the end, typically those startups, they are growing a step by step. So at the beginning they are very poor, and then maybe they are gaining a little bit of more and more traction in terms of financing as they are demonstrating things. So I think if I read correctly, your advice is also to not going too fast,
Totally.
because you could actually break and die from the success. So it's much better to go small first, and even with the real money, let's say that we are talking about the mainnet already, and in the mainnet that contract, let's say, is running. So it would be much better to try with limited number of people, smaller money, see how things works, and that it will not break, at least not break easily. And something also is coming to my mind now in terms of, let's say, this, a comparison of the likelihood and severity of potential risks, that are coming from different areas. But the part that I am kind of very curious of your opinion is, what if you are using mainly the standard software? So let's say you are using, standard SDK for Cosmos. You are using, let's say, I don't know, DAODISEO as your governance platform. And then you are using, Cosmos, of course, and IBC, let's say. So all these that we mentioned so far as kind of standard software, and maybe you have a smaller component, which is what characterize actually a little bit your business, right? Either in form of the smart contract, or maybe you have something in the binary that is special. So deriving from this reflection are two questions, what is your level of trust on Cosmos ecosystem in general, and the standard software that is there? What would be a typical risks that community is either knowing about them or finding them, and what type of challenges we might face there? And the second is, okay, so if the business is using those standard solutions, and maybe with some additions of custom code, is this safe? How much attention, how much money needs to be devoted then to all those aspects to prevent problems?
I'm posting this in the chat now. So all our audit reports are public, and for example, here you can just read about the Cosmos SDK and our report on the Cosmos SDK. This then contains our stance on the ecosystems and on the code of the ecosystems. I think what you were saying earlier was that, okay, let's assume you're a startup and you rely on standard components, and you assume that they are safe, and you only have a small thing that you deploy, or you want to deploy a token or something. First of all, we have a token audit service. So we offer, if it's really something really small, we offer a very standardized package to get an audit, and this is super affordable. We still have to look at it individually to see if it's really not complex, but if it's not complex, then you are getting away really cheaply. So especially for tokenization, this would apply. At least I think that. And this is a good example of something where you would say, okay, we have to rely on the infrastructure. And I would always encourage you to read a bit of the audit reports and see how much you want to trust it or not, or if some other chain is better or some other chain is maybe better from another angle, right? Maybe the UX is just better elsewhere or something else, or there's more liquidity, or like there's always a bunch of things that you decide upon. So security is only one component. And don't make your decision entirely based on security, because then what I said comes true again. Like maybe you end up with a metal plate that you bury in the desert, right? Which you don't want, right? But if you are, let's say, you're using the Cosmos SDK, right? And then you hire us, we will not re-audit the whole Cosmos SDK. I think auditing the Cosmos SDK is can take you a year if you want. And obviously, you wouldn't have the funds and also not the responsibility for paying for it. Make sure that the component you're using is audited. This is my recommendation, and make sure that it is recently audited and that the version that is in production is actually the audited version. And then you should be good to go. And if you just have a token, well, reach out to us. Tell us you have just a token. Refer to this podcast, and we will figure something out.
Thank you, Jan. Be sure you will have some contact from DAODISEO for sure. It's a pleasure actually to have the opportunity to speak with so experienced people. Tell me, you mentioned this report, and I don't want to kind of dig too in details. Of course, anyone could read the entire report of the Cosmos ecosystem, but would you be in the position now to kind of give us a helicopter view, let's say, and let me maybe to kind of help a little bit to say that obviously some startups, they do have some reasons that goes beyond security to select actually Cosmos, right? And those reasons probably are very well known for you, like the modularity of the system and the fact that is a kind of, in a sense, a battle-proof. Yeah, it was built by different kind of pieces of software at the end, but definitely is not new software. So it's also in this sense, hypothetically, battle-proof. Even though there were some comments in our last podcast about this. And also, the fact that is quite wide in the functionality. So you could easily kind of build things and adjust that to your organization. But security, yeah, we are today also for security. So is it possible that you give us that kind of helicopter view of big topics, like big tickets that you see on the Cosmos ecosystem? And I would include all major components, because typically someone who is using Cosmos is using SDK, is using Tendermint, is using IBC, is using Cosmos, right? So at the end, what is your rough opinion, helicopter view? Yeah.
Right. So if I would say Cosmos is safe today, this would, I guess, age very, very badly, because whenever you say such things go wrong, right? And we have found critical issues in the Cosmos SDK in the past, but also I have to highlight that this is true for all the other major chains, right? There were chain halts of larger chains. Critical bugs had been discovered in node software of many ecosystems. I'm not going to say names here, but like blockchain technology as such is not a fully mature technology, and even in the Linux kernel, we still discover critical bugs, right? So no system is safe. The question is just how probable is that an exploit will wipe out your money. And I think the risk is higher in Web3 overall, but the reward is also so much higher, right? And we have to take this into account as well. So I'm not gonna advise anybody here to build on some ecosystem. Also, because Oak Security is a neutral provider of cybersecurity. We help everybody who wants to build on one of the ecosystems. But we've been a long-term partner of the Cosmos ecosystem. And the reason why we are here is because we believe this is great technology and we want to help to improve the security of it. And I would encourage anybody to play around with it and see if they like it, if it fits their use case, and wouldn't say it's more or less secure than any other distributed system out there that has been battle tested for a couple of years.
Thank you. That's nice and encouraging that you feel this way about Cosmos. A kind of connected topic that came to my mind is a vault. At some point, you kind of mentioned a vault, yeah? The same way as you said, or similar way, when you said, okay, like a project in crypto, in a sense, is a bank, because you are holding the assets, so then you need to think about the vault, and kind of what that vault is. Yeah. So let's assume that when we are talking about the vaults, we can make some rough assumptions. I know that it's not black and white always, but we could kind of assume that you withdraw from the vault, or you are moving funds out of vault or into the vault with less frequency than other accounts. And I guess in between of the extreme, let's say the one extreme would be the vault itself, and the other extreme would be like a personal wallet for coffee. Yeah. So in between, I guess it is a little bit about like a correct structure of different wallets for the organization, and making them like not all eggs in the same place. Yeah, so that's kind of one thing. And making that structure fitting your organization, because it needs to be somehow distributed in one hand, but also manageable. So too granular would be too difficult to manage. So, regarding the vault in particular, I am very, very interested to know if you have some opinion as a person that is coming from security, like what are the best solutions, let's say, in the market for the vault. And then if you agree that concept that I was mentioning to design properly the granularity of the accounts is kind of makes sense, yeah. And if you can add anything to that.
All right, so I would say, like, when it comes to the diversification, I would basically look mostly at the financial components. So how much of your funds do you need on an everyday basis, and how much can you afford to lose? So I guess for most growing companies, it's not a problem to lose 1 or 2% of the entire money that they manage, right? It hurts, obviously, but this would be a lower number of things that can go wrong. And maybe if you have if you're growing very quickly and you need more money at your disposal every day, then this could reach levels to maybe 5% or something like that. But this would be the quotas or ratios where I would say, okay, with this and that amount, I would feel at least okay if they get lost, right? Or at least these are the amounts that I would maybe recommend. But I would again say this cannot be generalized. if you have a very low margin business, it might be way too much. And now if you are, for example, I don't know, it doesn't exist yet, right? But if you're a supermarket, all your working capital might be trapped in goods, and then you receive payments, and you might have massive amounts in wallets or your bank account, actually. So yeah, this is the real world case. So like supermarkets are notoriously known for having a super high balance on the bank account, but operating a very low margin business. And then for these kinds of problems, you would maybe have a dripping account. So an account where that constantly basically sends off the balance that it receives to somewhere else or something like that, to manage the working capital.
Perfect. Thank you, Jan. So I now maybe divert the questions to the people who are either in the call or they are following on Telegram. And also, Jan, of course, if you want to add from your side anything that was missed, let's say, during the call, and something that you believe we should propagate as an ideas, or is important for you to communicate in general. So.
Okay, sure. I will say something, but I would be interested to hear some question first.
Yes, I have the question. For me, it's interesting if any person watched this video and decided, I want to go deeper in the cybersecurity. I also want to try to understand different vulnerabilities of the blockchains. From what such a person needs to start? Is it possible to join OAK Security? Maybe OAK Security need developers, or maybe OAK Security need ambassadors. Maybe community can somehow contribute for the OAK Security, or if they want to start from something, what you can recommend?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. If you want to start and you are really coming from the scratch, then I have to say, sorry, we don't have a job for you. We only work with seniors. But I would encourage everybody who's looking for some first experience, maybe to get onto the big bug bounty programs, and on YouTube, just start hacking, like get your fingers dirty. And then if you have some experience, it doesn't need to be like tons of experience yet. You just have to be good. Then you're welcome to apply with us. We have very high standards. And I think that's good that we have those. I think, but generally, I think the world that we live in now is so great because a person like me who has a PhD in economics and wrote econometric software can become a security researcher. And I think for me personally, my journey was really inspired by a lot of YouTube content that I grinded, and getting my fingers dirty with actual smart contracts. Yeah, that's the way. That's the way to start, I would say. And obviously, if you want to be an ambassador for OAK Security and spread the message, then you can totally reach out to us. And let's talk about partnerships and how we can make the Cosmos ecosystem and other ecosystems more secure.
Thank you very much. We will spread this message.
Yes, someone is actually dropping, I think, a question.
It is not a question, but I want to just say huge thank you, guys, what you're doing for the security for us, for make the world better. Because it's not regulated. I don't want to see actually these fields be regulated at all, but they have to be secure, all right, to protect all of us. And thank you very much for all what you're doing.
Thank you so much. These were really kind words. Hey.
Thank you. Any other question?
If there are no other questions, I can kind of drop my latest article. I just wrote an opinion piece in crypto.news. So I wrote an opinion piece on how can it be that all these already audited protocols keep getting exploited, right? For example, HyperLiquid just had a 6 million exploit. Fortunately or unfortunately, but depending on how you look at it, it could be stopped. But the way how it was stopped was basically a centralized intervention. So this also then did not make people happy. And what happened there? So what happened was a economic exploit. And this economic exploit made use of the fact that you can go long and short on HyperLiquid at the same time, and you might end up with a winning position against the vault. So the attacker used a very low liquidity condition to open basically 2 trades, and one is sure to get liquidated, but the other one makes infinite wins, right? And obviously, maybe they don't know the side. Maybe they know the side ahead because they can manipulate the market. But that helps them to open a massive position. And then once you have that massive position and you're trading against the vault, you can basically drain the funds because your losses are capped and your potential profit is not capped. And that's the whole secret. And we spotted this issue, I think already 3 or 4 years ago. So a long time ago, and we advocated a long time in the ecosystem that, hey, this can happen. But what we saw is quite some pushback against these type of economic issues that are basically arbitrage. But we think that they are bad for the users, and others think that this is arbitrage that can go on. But in the end, a centralized intervention was needed, I think, which underlines that clearly nobody wanted this or nobody accepted this kind of behavior. And therefore, like, my personal stance is to really look carefully not only at the code and see if the code is correct, but at the whole architecture and check the architecture. Yeah, that's the only thing that I still wanted to mention.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. And, before we close, I have a kind of dessert question, for the dessert. So, it came to my mind, in which sense, and of course it's a complex topic, but maybe you provide like additional light in general. The abrupted integration of artificial intelligence in anything that we are doing, and the new risks for security in general. Anything that you would like to add?
I think, as any type of innovation, it's really a gift and a curse at the same time. So AI helps us to write code faster. Writing code faster might introduce more bugs, but we might also be able to find bugs faster. So far, I would not rely on AI to find bugs. I think we've seen cases also here in the chat where people found a bug maybe with AI and got convinced that it is a real problem, and it turned out not to be a problem. But at the same time, we also see that all the AI auditing services do not work really well. So we've tried implementing AI audits ourselves. They are a good first step, but they don't find deep and complex issues. So we use AI basically to improve the writing of our reports. And I think that's the right way how to do it, right? If you want to have consistent language and have everything checked and in a nice flow, then that's good. But you still have to pay attention that the AI does not invent something that is not there just from correcting the text, right?
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Vlad, I think this was a very nice meeting. I think we covered variety of aspects. So if anyone wants to say anything before we close today.
For me, it was so very interesting and so many inspirations. But looks like Jan described everything is pretty well and cool. Now I want to get more information about different parts of the cybersecurity. Thank you, Jan, for visiting us, and we will see each other on Interchain Summit at 21st of June. It will be so big pleasure to meet you in the material world.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Yes, so see you there. We will meet and enjoy face-to-face relation. Thank you.
Thanks for being on, and thanks for hosting me. Really great questions. Great to be on. Ciao, see you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, friends. Bye-bye.